Yo, big gratitude, big love, big appreciation in this space where the vulnerable are powerful and where the most gangster thing you can do is serve. This is All the Way Live.
The All the Way Live show. My brother Miles, Francis, I, and our producer come together absolutely every single week to give you guys some carefully curated content for your cranium. We do it every single week, man. And you know, a lot of the times these shows we really do pull from we really do try to bring our best energy forward for people. And I don't think what folks understand sometimes is that the energy we get from them is the energy that we need to keep going. So more than ever today, this show is definitely for the people that are going through some difficult times. We do the show because we know depression is at an all-time high, suicide is at an all-time high. We know that people are really going through it, especially through this time of holiday. And we just wanted to create a place where you can come through, get some positive energy, go through your day, and say some smart stuff that you can repeat around your friends.
No doubt. And we hope it's clear in the way that we come and approach this, that this is as much for us as it is for y'all. Y'all are as important a part of this conversation as the two voices you hear. So make sure that you comment, you tell us what you think, tell us what you like, and comment, and subscribe.
Every time. Miles Xavier, is such a pleasure to come through and do the show. We have so many great topics for this week. As always, we dedicate ourselves to researching a whole bunch of information, bringing it to the people, spending our time analyzing it. I don't know if I'm scared or if I want to laugh or if I want to listen and dance out to good music, but regardless of what it is, we definitely are doing all three of those things today.
No doubt. You came to the right place. This is a come as you are type of space that comes to you from South Africa. My boy is back home, back with the fam. I hope you've given them my love. I hope you've allowed them to, love on you as you return. How does it feel to be home?
It feels good to be home, man. It's nothing like going back to your mom's place. Got nothing like being back with family. It's December time over here, so the weather is incredibly so much better than it was in Chicago, man. I can't be happier to be in short sleeves. I definitely have sent your love to the family, and they want you to know that you're missed this side and are due for a visit very soon.
Feels good to be missed, and I miss that side as well. I miss that feel good weather that you got going on. Thanks for soaking it up for us. Shout out to our producer Hassan. The show is brought to you from the UK, holding it down in the building. And on this side, you know what's going on. This podcast is recorded on stolen land. This land was cared for, the city of Chicago, by the Potawatomi people, the Council of the Three Fires, and the violence done to remove them from this land is inseparable from the violence that we see in this city today, this country today, in this world today. As somebody who makes it my job to confront that violence through my work, through my efforts, and with my brother, through everything that we do, we realize the importance of lifting up love between Black and Brown communities, for lifting up love of Indigenous communities the world over, and for giving you that intro every time to acknowledge that history, and so that you know that the intro is over.
Yeah, I get that, but is we live though? Is we like all the way live though? You heard?
Miles Xavier, you are a community organizer. I am an activist. Our brother Hassan is an advocate. We're people who are very community driven. And this particular part of the show, which we call the Impact Spotlight, is when we look at organizations that are doing good work, that are doing that impact work, and we highlight them. This week, we got the news that Brittney Griner was free. And we had recently done a segment on Brittney Griner's arrest not too long ago, specifically highlighting that Marc Fogel is still arrested and in a Russian prison. Good news, and what I love about Marc Fogel's family is that they're such classy people and they're such good folks that they celebrated that too and said, hey, we're really great. We're really glad that Brittney's going back home. This is great news, but let's not forget that there still is Marc Fogel and some other Americans who are still in prison in those Russian jails, and we should also continue to push for them to come back home. So we're celebrating Brittany Griner, but it's still free Mark Fogel over here.
For sure that. And thank you for bringing us into this space with an acknowledgement of how humbling it is to be able to push out information on crises in real time, on ways that we can help real people in real time through things that they're going through. It was very touching to be able to put this particular story out there, particularly with your connection to Mark Fogel as one of your teachers in high school. And so to see, Brittany as a part of that story as well, get free, that's something we got to lift up. We're not always as loud with the we freeze as we are with the freedoms. You know what I'm saying? We've been championing free Brittany Griner on this podcast, so it's amazing to be able to be back on the show to say that she is free, and amazing to see that Mark's family was able to celebrate that in solidarity. Right, that's a big, I think, theme for us and the work that we do and the stories that we cover. Solidarity is important. So to be able to celebrate in solidarity and to be able to realize that the story ain't over because not everybody's free. Yeah, man, it's a complicated situation and it's bittersweet because she didn't come home after dealing with nothing. She had to go through it. She had to go through the trial. She had to get sentenced. So happy to see that, she's on the other side of that, and we need that for Mark.
And if you hear about what was happening in those prisons that she was in, she was saying she had to cut off her dreads because they wouldn't dry and the weather is so cold, like her head would freeze. So she had to do that. Because of her stature and her size, she wasn't able to participate in the usual labor that's designated for women that are going into those prisons. It's quite dire. And you actually are hearing a lot of people say they traded the merchant of death for Brittany Griner. Is that an equal fair trade? And they're criticizing whether the U.S. was right in saying we'll take a 1-for-1 for somebody who has someone who's had so much more impact in the death of the lives of other people, and 1 star, saying why couldn't we bring back more than just 1?
I think it gets real complicated when we start to compare the value, the worth of one person versus another, especially as captives of nation states. So there's an interesting conversation there, but I just want to reiterate that at the forefront of this is Brittany's humanity as a person who was locked up, Mark's humanity as a person who's locked up, wanting them to, and specifically, let's be real about them being locked up for, weed, right? Cannabis, right? Take that however you want, but there's a certain limit to how much that's hurting at somebody else, right? So their humanity in this is at the forefront for me. And it makes it difficult to make those types of comparisons, right? It's all a spectrum, right? Because we're comparing Brittany to the person we traded her for, we're at the same time comparing, well, what if this was an NBA star? We would have got him out of there sooner, right? We would have made sure that if this was LeBron, he wouldn't have been over there for this long, right? We would have made sure we went and got him, whether or not that's true, right? So an NBA star has more clout than a WNBA star who may have more clout than a professor, right? It's very difficult to make those comparisons. So I think to me, my take is I'm glad Brittany's home. I hope we can still work to free Mark Fogel and that we prioritize everybody's humanity, period.
The petition for Mark Fogel's freedom is still available for people to sign. If you want more information, live on our Instagram page. We also have further information on how you can get involved with Free Mark Fogel. It's still an ongoing fight. It's still an ongoing fight. And if anything, I do take away that it's possible. These things are possible to get people back home. So let's keep a lookout. And it's not just Mark Fogel. It really, a lot is happening in the world right now at the moment. And thank you to our producer for bringing up the link for the Free Mark Fogel. Happening in Haiti right now, armed groups have taken over the whole city. Rape and kidnapping have just shot through the roof. There's really a lot going on. And what I do hope is that on the show we can bring up some of those things and at least feel like we're participating in helping people know how to be able to help if it does compel them. So this is another one of those instances. This is how you can help free Mark Fogel. Great teacher, high school teacher of mine. We hope to see him back home soon.
No doubt, no doubt. And yes, man, as much as we organize together, that word solidarity again, we also celebrate together. Sway, if you have been locked up for a few months, right, going through it, right, came home, family, loved ones, what's the first thing you're doing?
Which country did I get locked up in?
Oh man, let's start with Russia. Let's say it was like that.
It's got to be a home cooked meal. There's got to be a home cooked meal. You gotta go to mom's house after you come out of Russian prison. There's nothing to be made. You gotta go to your mom's house.
Mama's crib for sure. The comforts of home.
What about you? Where would you go?
Oh man, yeah, mom's house is not a bad one at all. But whether or not I'm coming home, if I was just in Russia, where I'm going depends on what season it is, right? I might need to come to your mama's house. I need because if it's December in Chicago like it is now, I think I want to be somewhere warm. You know what I'm saying? I need some warmth to revive my bones after that. You know what I'm saying? So I would want to be going maybe to Cape Town. You know what I'm saying? Kick it with you, right? And I trust you as my brother to know all of the other things that need to accompany that welcome home. That I would be in good hands.
Oh, I see. You're trying to go from the cell to sightseeing. I got you.
Sight or just being with the fam, with other people that know the types of comforts and enjoy the types of comforts that I would want when I come home, for sure.
You know, one of those things that are actually quite uncomfortable is the fact that in San Francisco right now there might be robots roaming around on the street.
I would be so uncomfortable in San Francisco right now.
That would always be uncomfortable. Thanks, Mama Gila.
Yes. That's love right there. That's love. And I very much look forward to my next opportunity to take advantage of that hospitality and to be with y'all, man. Man. All right. Let's get into the uncomfortable. Sometimes you make a mistake, right? Sometimes you throw something out there. Maybe it's an email you didn't mean to send. You know, you try and backspace, undo. Sometimes you can't undo. Sometimes the cat is out of the bag, as they say, right? The San Francisco Police Department and Board had one of these cats out of the bag type situations. A proposal was put on the table to allow the police to use lethal robots with lethal capabilities in the field. And the San Francisco Police and the board were like, cool, yep, do it. Put those robots with lethal capabilities in the field. And the people of San Francisco were like, huh? And then there was an outcry, and the San Francisco board and the police department were like, our bad, we just playing. We're not gonna let these robots out there. But it was almost a thing. And looks like it will be a thing. So Zoe, what you think?
You know, with our producer pulling up this image, all I can think about is Will Smith slapping all these robots like he did Chris Rock. That's all I can see. He's ruined it for me. But undoubtedly, part of the thought process goes into, because we've seen movies like I Am Robot, Terminator, Ex Machina. The whole idea is that we'll go into this place where we're ruled by these robots. And it's not a very far cry, because we're seeing a lot of robots actually starting to participate in military duty. I like to play devil's advocate on this. Can I play devil's advocate without the threat of being accused of wanting to support for this? Is that okay?
Look how defensive we've made my brother on this show.
You made me this defensive. You did this.
My bad, G. This is a safe space. Yes, I love it. Play devil's advocate for us. What are the advantages of killer robots?
You see, even how you ask that question is my problem with how you post things, but I'll skip through that and I'll say part of the benefits, when you think about rescue missions, particularly with these robots now being used to like go into homes where there's fires. There's also said to be a robot that can patrol the oceans without having people inside. The question then comes: is it better to remove human life from the front of combat, understanding that no combat is the ideal situation, but is the distance between human life, even in the situation of like policing? Because what if we can program for more ethically and efficient, for more ethical police robots that don't shoot on sight?
I would love to see a day where, well, I don't even know if even if the police robots were trained very well, that I would love to see us being policed by robots. I think that leaves us very vulnerable to some iRobot-like situations. But currently, the data on AI does not say that it would be more fair to people of color than the police. It's actually quite the opposite.
You always got to make a racist. Oh man.
I'm just saying, dude. Like that's part of the research and looking into this topic. Definitely found that AI can be racist. Definitely found that out. Spoiler alert. Boy, I hope to not uncover racism under a story one day. I hope to look all through and looking throughout and just be like, this ain't got nothing to do with it. But yes, AI can be racist. Facial recognition does not does discriminate. But anyway, I think what you just described is like, I think that these robots are perfect for some of those situations, right? A fire, yes, send a robot, right? The ocean, the depths, deep pressure, the bends, it messes us up, send a robot, right? My only beef is when we send the robots to deal with people. And specifically, this particular case was for robots to use lethal force against people. And so send the robots against the elements, but not into the hood.
Well, you're not the only person that feels that way, because one of the places where they're getting the most amount of funding is at the Cambridge University. So even Stop Killer Robots is now a student-led movement in Cambridge, in the University of Cambridge. And what they've seen is that $840 million, multiple billions of dollars have been pledged towards that program by the U.S. Defense and other security companies for the development of these, what they call lethal autonomous robots. So clearly there's a huge push into that, right? Into these killer robots, as they deem them. And they're terrifying looking. They're absolutely terrifying looking. The question is, right, if the US as a military state, should they abandon this type of investment, knowing what Russia has done and knowing what China has done and seeing what Russia is doing in Ukraine right now, and the fact that they also are investing in that sort of technology? Do we find ourselves at a place where we say the US should stop doing this, or should they continue doing it because of the looming threats?
Oof, you found an uncomfortable corner of this conversation where it's like, look how opposed Americans are to drones if they're going to be used on us. Like, dang, we don't like it, right? Well, first of all, I don't think, especially when it comes to military advancements, that we should be mirroring other countries, especially those who we openly say contradict our values and what we're trying to do, right? And I'm not the biggest, most America rah-rah type person, but I don't think that we look to Russia or China as spaces where it's important for us to emulate, because I think the way that we police internally is different from international defense, right? So I don't know if we need to necessarily match them one for one on internal policing. But I think it's really my beef with these is twofold, right? My beef is that, and y'all already know where I'm going with it. My beef with these is that, one, criminalization and over surveillance occurs in certain communities, And so that these type of things are more likely to be deployed in certain communities, our communities, Black and brown communities, right? So that's one. And then two, what you're doing by allowing police to have remote controlled killer robots, right, is that you're putting even greater distance in terms of somebody who has lethal force and their target, right? And so that target being a person, right? So we already know that police have to be in very stressful situations and often have to make split-second decisions, and often those decisions have catastrophic consequences. And in the spaces where those decisions have catastrophic consequences, I don't know if it's necessarily a good thing to put more space between that officer that's trying to do whatever he's trying to do, keep people safe, whatever it is, and that other human person that he has to make these heavy decisions with involving, you know?
So when you read that the U.S. Defense Department wants to spend $874 million next year on just investing in AI-related technologies, you know, it really does show that I think part of the issue with your country is that there are so many different factions of spending that are happening at the same time. And I guess as the you know, you guys are giving me the capitalist cap on as Captain Capitalist of the show, right? Is to say that
stamping it. Big facts.
No, don't you stamp Captain Capitalist on me. I hate that. So what it is, but like what it really does come down to again is just the controlling of spending and us knowing where spending is going to, because this is one of those cases where a government will spend more on military if we allow them to and if we vote them into it. And these are the sort of things that they invest in. On the other side of AI, there's actually really some cool applications that are happening. AI is increasingly becoming a lot more conscious in its ability to be able to describe scenarios and conjure images. They said these sort of technologies could potentially even help, for instance, blind people. So with blind people, they could get a situation described to them accurately, you know, serving as an aid of sorts. And I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna get into the tinfoil talk, so I might as well break the seal, right? I don't believe in none of this, right? Even
what do you mean?
Even the small leap from like letting police control the remote control joint to using AI to allow that thing to control itself and make its own decisions, right, through computers and algorithms. Like, yeah, I don't trust 12, but man, I also don't trust AI, man. And they say everybody who's making AI is saying we're not making it safe enough. It's coming for us. They all saying that. You heard Elon Musk talk to the robot?
I've seen that, but you know what it is. I think, Ben, we are projecting an insecurity in the evilness of us as people onto something that is only a mirror of our intentions on it. Technology is a reflection of the intention that the humans put onto it, because without our intention onto it, it's just another tool. It's just a collection of scrap metal. And I think part of the reason why we're so afraid of technologies is because we know what we can do as people and what we are doing to each other. So immediately we jump into the worst of that outcome. But if the right intentions are there, I think there's a lot of practical usage that you can have for AI into the way we live now.
Well, I think a lot of the concern that I hear from experts now is less that AI can be bad because it can be a reflection of our best and worst tendencies as humans, but actually more so that AI is often at its core a problem-solving mechanism. And because humans are such flawed creatures and AI has so much data to collect about humans, there are many problems in which the shortcut to solving them is eliminating or is very detrimental to humans, right? And the more that we give AI control and interconnectivity of access to itself and to learn about humans, the more likely it is that we'll ask it to solve a problem that results in us being something it has to subtract, right? Rather than it being that humans are weird and messed up and indecisive and, you know, emotional, and that'll imprint on robots. I think it's actually more so that robots are cold and calculating enough that the decision to eliminate humans, the more we allow them to integrate into our lives, becomes both more obvious and much easier.
And that's on the far end of that conspiracy spectrum, which is that robots kill us because we're a problem and they're gonna find problems, and that's somewhat true. But if you think about if they say now that robots are actually conscious, right, which means that the mind is seeking to solve complex issues under complex scenarios, which is how a mind has been described by these data scientists. We can look at ourselves and say we have the same capacities, but we haven't gone about. I mean, I guess we kind of have killed each other, but not the majority of the world is not killing the majority of the world. You know what I'm saying? That's not what's happening. A lot of it is happening.
It's what happened for a lot of history. We spent a lot of time.
You're right. Yeah, you're right. You're right on that front. But that's where I don't fully believe in that. Like I see that as it can't happen for sure. But also we can also input into robots the issues such as climate change, and then have offset some of the responsibilities that we have to take on for climate change for them to be able to take on, which might be recycling, which might be collection of dirt within the oceans, which might be protection of sea creatures and sea spaces. You have little what's the gent in Black Panther 2?
Oh, not Namor.
You have Namor, but he's like a cyborg robot and he protects the fishies. You know what I'm saying? That is possible too. Robot mermaids is what I'm talking about. I'm talking about climate change robot mermaids.
Yeah. When these are the type of dreams. This is what creeps into your mental when you're putting together a startup, flying back and forth between countries, and trying to have impact on the world, all while watching Marvel movies. This is. We just got to peek into the psyche. You heard it here first. Robots, ladies and gentlemen.
All the crazy ones?
Of robots, of AI.
We laugh about this, but there could come a time where that happens. And that's where I believe that, like, that's where the world of data and the world of AI becomes so interesting, is because where it is really inconceivable for us to be able to. There's a limit on the things that we can do as people, but there really is no limit on what we can program for something to do. That is infinite, and it's just based on the energy that is stored within that thing. So that really is a possibility. And I guess I stand on the other side of that conspiracy theory. You're at robots might kill us all. I'm at like invest in robot mermaids. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, word. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe I'm just jaded. I think I look at AI as like humans' next opportunity at like a very deep relationship, right? Like we got into a relationship with the internet and it hurt us. It hurt us real bad, right? But but it also, created some incredible opportunities and increased quality of life in places. So I feel like AI is that next step. And I personally feel like we as humanity haven't done enough work on us to be ready for AI. Right. I mean, just like you said, it has capacities to relieve humans of lots of duties and obligations, and will definitely take over a lot of intellectual labor that we do as people. So as we move into that, it's kind of scary to be like, are humans ready for that? Are humans ready to become obsolete in so many different ways? And do we value ourselves? Are we confident enough as a species in what we're capable of to navigate that? I'm not sure.
So what you're saying, instead of thinking AI, you're saying we should think, hey, I.
Oh wow. Yo, this has been Stumbled Upon. Yo, I hope you enjoyed this segment.
Are you getting us out?
Hey, dang, bro. Yeah.
Come on, man. Shooters are gonna shoot. Miles, let me shoot. Let me clear the way.
Shooters gonna shoot. I got you. Come around. You got another one. Let me set this pick.
Look, man. Current news. This week on Current News, what we're looking into is wage theft. right? So we've been hearing a lot of companies, UPS having to pay people some back payment, McDonald's having to pay people some back payment. They said that Burger King in San Francisco had to pay 200 employees in back payments and back wages over something that they called wage theft.
Wow, they running our pockets.
In more ways than one. In more ways than one. So wage theft is actually what they say when any income that you don't get paid that you are owed. This could be pay. This could be access to meal and lunch, access to meal and rest breaks. This is workers' compensation, that sort of thing. Especially in the cases that we've seen over the weeks where employers are mandating that their employees have to either buy their uniforms up front, have to pay for their training up front, have to pay for their background checks up front. That is where a lot of what they call wage theft happening.
Yeah, I know. I've been through this for sure. Anybody who has ever really needed a job, like really needed it because you ain't had no money, and then you got an opportunity to start a job, and then you ran into them off telling you had to buy your own uniform or whatever. Oh, you know about wage theft. This one hits close to home. We all come on, man. You supposed to be giving me money. You got to spend money to make money at McDonald's, at UPS.
You got to spend money to make money at McDonald's.
That's crazy. That's crazy. And it's funny. It's I can laugh now because the job that I have now, I'm not sure they're not stealing from me, but it isn't as dire as it was before. I definitely need to check the books. But I think it's one of those things where this really gets, like, if you really need that money, and it affects low income workers more than most people, like every dollar counts, and for them to be taking it out your pocket, that's crazy, man. That hurts.
It does. And it actually is one of those things where this is where we get vulnerable, right? This is where we get vulnerable. As someone that employs people, right? When I read this, I see two things. I see criminal behavior, and then I also see instances of business ignorance, right? It's not innocent ignorance, but it is ignorance. One of those situations that comes to mind is, for instance, Rick Ross. Rick Ross owns a whole bunch of Wingstops. At that Wingstop, they say that he owed about $114,000 in back payments.
Yeah, Wingstop's been stealing my wages for sure.
Miles, you might be owed to money.
Main culprit of my shit too, no doubt.
It's Wingstop. But with Rick Ross, they said that 66 employees where he worked at were owed wages. They were forced to pay for their salaries up front. The cash register shortage at the end was pulled from their wages. They took him to court, and he stepped up forward and was like, "Hey, yo, you make mistakes in businesses. I made a mistake. I'm taking full accountability of it, and I'm gonna try and be better going from that point forward." So I see almost two sides of it, right? Because they are, I can totally understand a situation where it's really difficult to manage a lot of people. And I'm not saying that as somebody who does, because nowhere near the scale of what Rick Ross is doing or anything of that sort. But it's very easy if you step into a position to not have processes in place that cause for frustration. But it is your responsibility to be able to make yourself better from that.
Yeah. I think on this show, we've kind of established, like, as opposed to Captain Capitalist, right? I'm kind of the arch nemesis of Captain Capitalist, right? You know what I'm saying? Power to the people. And so usually that makes me the person that, whenever there's the opportunity to rag on corporations or businesses, for unfair practices, I'd be like, hey, look at them. Look at this. You know what I'm saying? But this actually might be an opportunity for us to kind of look at everybody's inability to manage details, or the difficulty, at least, maybe not inability, but the difficulty of managing the details. Because as you just mentioned, it's difficult to run a corporation with a lot of people on payroll. As a brother that receives payroll, sometimes it can be difficult to manage your own payroll. You know what I'm saying? My internal household finances can get complicated sometimes, right? To the point where, like I said, this story made me think, I could definitely do a more thorough job of taking a look at what is the pay that I'm entitled to. How should that be broken down with the regularity that I get paid by my job? How much of that is being taken? I've never double checked whether the percentage that they say gets taken out for taxes is the actual percentage that's being removed from my check, like at a math level. Like, we don't look to those details. It's like the terms and conditions on Apple. When you just got your new AirPods or your iPhone, you scroll through them terms and conditions. We kind of do that with a job offer, right? We look to the company, we see what their culture is like. We align our resume with what they need for the position. But once we got that thing, once they give us the offer letter, I don't know if we do and once we get that first paycheck, I don't know if we do as good a job of, holding it up to the microscope. We usually, you taking it to the bank, So maybe
undoubtedly.
Yeah. So maybe we can see how that same could be true. And though companies have whole departments that are devoted to this, it's people in those departments. And often getting that stuff handled as quickly as possible makes up for is a way of saving cash and making that business run. So we all can take another look at how we balance this, and increasing transparency from both parties, I think, could actually help a lot.
That's a big part of it. Transparency. For some reason, I still struggle to wrap my head around why speaking about salaries is so taboo, especially when the collective power of what everybody earns increases the ability for everybody to earn more. What's up?
I have a theory.
Yeah, hit me with it.
Because I'm getting back in my bag. It's because capitalism makes us live in a society that's based on competition. And when everybody's in competition, and money is one of the most basic things that we value and measure each other by, right? Like wealth as like status, then it becomes taboo to really tell somebody where your status level is at, because that their tendency, because of the society we're raised in, is going to be to compare it to theirs and place you somewhere different. But if you leave it vague and you're somewhere in a bracket, then maybe you get a little bit of bump in status. I think that's a lot of what makes it hard to talk about how much everybody's actually making.
That's why, I think one of the new things that we're trying to do with our Good Data Hub company is introduce a different way of compensation, a different way of equity structure, really relying on open source and going into that new wave of companies that are putting it out public, how it is that people compensated, having those brackets be very, very well defined. Everybody knows what they're stepping into, and is aware of what other people are earning, not as a fact of competition, but just knocking down the walls of taboo. And having a clear guide towards what people can earn and not earn. That's why we're going to try and lean into those things. Now, speaking of startup communities, right? One of the big wage thieves right now that people are looking towards is friend of the show, Elon Musk. They're saying that Elon Musk has now been inserting beds into the Twitter head offices for people to be able to sleep in the offices for what he refers to as a hardcore and intense environment.
And so connect it for me real quick. How the beds, is he making the employees pay for their beds?
So one of the ways that they call it, one of the ways that it's actually defined as waste theft is that waste theft is also defined as when you're being asked to do more than you're contracted to do, is being asked for you to do work when you're checked out, not being allowed to check out, being forced to, go over the legislated amount of work hours.
I feel you. So it's less that they made them pay for the beds, but it's the fact that now you got a bed in your office. So unless you're literally asleep, you're expected to be grinding at the keyboard from Musk, right? It's crazy. This happens in all sorts of ways, right? Even or let me say that this brings up a lot of business practices that could be considered within this category. Even the idea of like sending somebody home with a laptop, right? Radically changed. It was different when you got a job at an office and the office had a desktop and you sat at that computer all day. But when you leave, you log out that computer and you done. You don't have access to that no more, right? And then 9 to 5, you might be able to take a call, but you're not at that computer till the next day. Now we're in a space where you bring home that laptop, You're expected to be able to answer an email right quick. It's 6 p.m., 7, it's 9 p.m. Your laptop's there, so you still in Excel, you still on the worksheet, right? That, in a way, just the subtle, we've given you the capability to work from home, and so now you owe it to us some of that time. It gets tricky, bro. It gets tricky.
It gets very. So.
Oh, well, you got it.
You know, when I look at this Elon Musk thing, you know, what I really think it is, is that there's a certain environment that you get, there's a certain feeling and collective drive you get when you're starting a startup, and a lot of entrepreneurs really bracket themselves in the phase of starting something, you know, coming in and getting everybody excited and riled up, and you know, look at the vision and then creating the vision and then allowing somebody else to run it. There's a whole group of entrepreneurs who are solely engaged with business at that early stage level because of how exciting it is. People are willing to work overtime. We spent yesterday working through Saturday. It was 9:30, 10 p.m. over here in South Africa. We all dedicated our time. We're tired. We pushed through it. We've had weekends where we've done marathon work sessions, going in for hours at a time, people wanting to be there, not wanting to leave the office. So there is that voluntary commitment because of how excited you are about the idea, how excited you are about potentially changing the world. And it really is an addictive excitement. It's one of the things that I absolutely love about entrepreneurship, is that process where it's like, cool, there's a group of people who are fully dedicated to the same thing, and we love it, and we want to change the world, and we're excited about it. I think Elon Musk is trying to recapture that environment, but is going about it in a terrible way. Because if there were people that I'm positive there are people in that Twitter office who love that idea of having the beds there, and they want to be able to work, and that's all they want to do is change Twitter based on what Musk's direction is. But I think sometimes when you see the response of the masses and people voting with their feet, a la leaving, quitting, and criticizing Twitter, then I think you have to relook the way that you're communicating that you want that sort of buy-in.
Yeah, and I think who are you expecting that buy-in from? Are you expecting that buy-in from? Because I think an interesting word that you used as you were describing that process is entrepreneurship. And who in a company is an entrepreneur? If an entrepreneur leads a company like Twitter, right? You're an entrepreneur as the CEO. Does that make the board of directors entrepreneurs? Maybe if they were also co-founders, right? But then does that make your regional managers entrepreneurs? Not really, right? Does that make the people further down the line, I think, are less and less entrepreneurs? And in saying that they're less entrepreneurs, I don't mean that they don't have an entrepreneurial spirit, but they don't have a vested stake in the company the same way that the CEO, who is truly an entrepreneur, does, right? Or some of those other founders. And so I think to ask for that buy-in before you've created that investment is kind of where Musk has kind of skipped a step here. I don't know if he's got people excited about a vision for what Twitter could be and made them really feel like, even though Twitter is an established company who has maybe already peaked in terms of its relevance, I don't know, controversial maybe, what he sees them building that would mean that people have the type of devotion that would make them want to sleep at the office. And I think that kind of hierarchy of who might be reaping the benefits of all of that extra time spent is people that get to claim responsibility for the product. And I think, shout out to our producer Hassan, like when he shows these examples of wage theft, that it's often the people that certainly don't get credit for the product, but that are more just like every day, 9 to 5, working in these companies, software managers, software engineers, like, right? Like, all the way, and it gets all the way deeper, like industrial workers, auto factory workers, right? People that don't get to be a part of the bigger brand at the top, that often have these types of salary things like pulled away from them, right? So this is wage theft in the United States, at least, affects 17 to 20% of low wage workers, right? That's 1 in 5. right? So I think when we look at these things, there needs to be a restructuring of how do people that don't make the big salaries at companies, what is their investment? What are you doing to make them invested if you're gonna ask this type of commitment from them?
That's a great point. And for the most part, what it speaks to is that disconnect, like you're saying. What are you saying? How are you communicating to them to get that buy-in? What it seems to me is a man who has his back against the walls and has admittedly said that he's under a lot of pressure. No matter how much money you have, a $44 billion investment is extremely hefty. And I think he's seeing that we are in the midst of a recession. Financially, things are about to get very difficult. And he has an idea that he's really aggressively trying to shift people towards. And I think the misstep in his approach is that for Twitter to succeed, it has to be based on wellness. There has to be a wellness element into it, a health element into it. And it doesn't mean necessarily boring, but it has to be, the approach of aggressive wellness, especially from the internal operations of the system, are what are making it have this very pungent stench that is actually impacting the bottom line of Tesla shares. We've been seeing that as Elon Musk has been increasing his activity as the CEO of Twitter, there's been a decrease in the performance of Teslas. There's been a decrease in the purchases. It could be because of the economic climate at the moment, but undoubtedly it's also to the fact that people are feeling kind of sick and tired of hearing this man almost throw his ego around.
Yeah, it sounds like another billionaire that we've referenced on the show, right?
Who? Which billionaire is currently throwing his ego around and offending people?
Well, more interesting than either of those two billionaires is this phenomena that like maybe billionaires, even though they've been able to amass this amount of wealth, are deeply, maybe through having and the way they've amassed that amount of wealth, deeply disconnected from what the majority of people want, to the point where people are offended, to the point where it's news. Billionaires keep offending people to the point where it's news because of the disconnect in their mindset versus the mindset they expect everybody else to have. And I think that is part of the issue. I think that a lot of people have with billionaires is that you're giving so much, that you're allowing them to have so much power by allowing them to amass this much wealth. And clearly they're not for the people type of people, or are unable to maintain a mentality that jives with what people are really thinking about on the ground. So that's crazy. And it's interesting because you said like that, all of that in the context of an economic downturn, which for businesses means I'm scrambling to save my business, but for people means I'm scrambling to make ends meet, right? And so this is in the United States, right? In the 10 most populous states, 2.4 million workers had $8 billion wage thefted from them annually, right?
Ocean's 15.
In 2021, right? 8 B's in the 10 most populous states, the United States, right? That translates to about $3,300 a person per year.
Wow.
You know what I could do with an extra $3,300 for me a year? You know what I could do with that? This show would be looking right. You know,
Buy more Wingstop.
Yo, I'm definitely buying Wingstop with the 300 of that 3,300. Wingstop. Shout out to Ross. You know what I'm saying? But bringing it even more in Chicago, right? The city of Chicago estimates that each year $400 million is taken from workers in the Chicagoland alone. 400 M's, mostly affecting low-wage workers. So when we look at the things that city of Chicago goes through, and you're taking 400 M's from these from low wage workers, maybe it's not as complicated as it seems, right? Wage theft is a real thing. It's a serious thing. Check the books, check what you're getting paid versus what you were promised you were supposed to get paid. We never leave the show without impact. So another thing that you could do if you really want to get deep into it is check out the petition to update the Fair Labor Standards Act. It's basically a petition that governs the rights of workers in the United States, and it hasn't been updated since 1938. So it's about time that we update this thing and make sure that we implement higher standards for what workers are paid, for the type of treatment they receive, for the type of investment that they get in the companies that they work for years and years and years and years and years. That's what I think.
Hey man, listen, new introduction to the show. Thank you so much for giving people something to do. We have a new segment in the show called Quick Hits, where we get some questions coming in either from the audience or from our producer, and we answer them live onto the show. I believe we have a few questions. Please feel free to ask any questions in the comments, and we'll see if we can get to it. Let's start off with the first of what we got, man.
Should all artifacts go back to their native lands? Yes.
Next.
Come on, Zay. Captain Capitalist.
Don't do that. Don't do that. I fully believe in all artifacts going back to their native lands. That's a no-brainer. Send it back. Especially
dig up the queen.
Go ahead and get back the Cullinan Diamond. We've already covered that. Get back that Cullinan Diamond and let's bring it back home, man. Come on.
No doubt. No doubt. Easy.
Can Kanye soul sample his way back into the mainstream?
I saw you dirty with that, man.
Oh.
Talk about that track and confidence.
Because it's kind of nice. That's the problem. It's kind of got a bop to it. It's got that old Kanye feel.
It's kind of nice, but I think to me the answer to this question is a sad no. But I think especially because my man keeps rapping the same nonsense he's talking over the beats, even though the beats be fire. I think maybe a year ago, 2 years ago, there was a route for Kanye that was the optimal route to just go back to producing, to just be undeniable in his production and to not say anything. But I think we're too far gone from that now.
Kanye's last tweet on Twitter said, "Who are Jewish people to tell me who to love and who not to love? Jewish people should forget Hitler. Good night."
We should forget Kanye. Good night. 4-day work week. Study shows working less boosts well-being and productivity. Well, not at Twitter and not a good data, but I hope those of y'all that want to boost your well-being and your productivity, hope y'all get more rest, man. You know what I'm saying?
Are you saying I'm stealing wages? Is that what you're saying? I'm stealing wages? Is that what you're accusing me of doing?
Nah. But like you said, I think there's environments where people are looking to get a good balance out of their workplace, and I think there are environments where people are willing to put it all on the line to build something they believe in. So I'm glad that good data can be, the all in for what we believe in type deal. But I am super encouraged to see more study in terms of allowing people to rest, and that it can actually lead to productivity and more of a focus on self-care in general workplaces where people are looking for that work-life balance, man.
Yeah, that's important. And I try and subscribe to the what they say is the 1-2-7 rule. No, it's the 2-3-5 rule, which is that if a team out of 10 people, 2 people are the ones that are actually carrying that whole thing through. The other 3 are just interim supporters to that too, and the rest of the people really are going to do the bare minimum to get by, and that's kind of like the rule. One of the things that you've seen other companies and folks like Ray Dalio encourage is the 20% cut rule, which is that at the end of every quarter, the least performing of the 20% get fired, and that's something that people do in order to keep those sorts of to keep folks working hard.
It's ruthless, dog. Yo.
Hey man, I'm not encouraging that. I'm just saying those are strategies that people use to keep morale high. The only people that don't panic around those types of things are the people that are working.
For sure. We gonna keep it quick. Next one.
yeah, quick. I think that's it, man. Yo, producer, let's talk about some music.
Yo, um, I don't know. I don't know I don't know how I'm supposed to feel right now. You know what I'm saying? I don't know how I'm supposed to feel. We reviewing SZA. We reviewing SOS. We've been waiting on SZA for a long time. Zway is our resident R&B aficionado, and I don't know. We ain't said much. We ain't spoken too much. But I don't know how you. I don't sense the excitement. I don't sense the what's going on, man. Don't keep us in suspense. What did you think?
That's very interesting you say that, because I have a very sobering and a very matter of fact appreciation for this album. You know, sometimes a joke is so funny that you don't laugh, but you just like, that was very funny. And it's how I feel about this album. I think this album is so good that I'm thinking to myself, that was very good. Quite in a matter of fact, I don't know what that says about how my long term feel for that album, but definitely from play, I was actually quite surprised at how good this album actually turned out being. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not saying that I expected. I don't know what I expected after such a long time, but it went above my expectations.
Mm, mm. Say a little bit more, man. Was it the vocals? Was it the writing? Was it the production? The whole thing? What did you like about it so much? Because I'm surprised.
And
I didn't know. I didn't know what it was, but I felt that, the joke was told, and I didn't hear the laugh, so I didn't know. That's the energy I'm getting. So I want you to tell me a little bit more about what you thought.
I think it's a showcase of all three. I think in the areas that she could have grown from Control, she found a way to almost capture all of the things about Control that people appreciated, and then also add some source into it. Particularly, I think her writing is what stands out more than anything out of this album. Songs like "Love Language," even songs like let's see, we're getting into Snooze, into Low, where she's actually rapping and like going in, smoking on my X Pack, like, very crafty writing that she's doing. It's almost like watching Tim Duncan do what they call big fundamentals, right? She just really executes so well in the fundamentals of song structure. She's really, really good at writing, and that's what jumps out more than anything. Whether she's talking about being, whether she's talking about her sex life, or she's talking about her love life, or she's speaking about just the complexities of being a popular artist and what that means for her relationships. I think she's able to really deliver that point across and carry those themes through each of those songs quite well.
Nice. Man, I'm so glad you enjoyed this, bro. I'm really glad you enjoyed this. I ain't gonna hold you, bro. I ain't gonna hold you. It was difficult.
How'd you feel?
It was difficult going into the first listening session. Check out our live listening sessions on Fridays, where we spin records related to the albums that we go and review. You feel me? It was difficult going into that listening session, not knowing my brother wasn't going to be there for the most deeply R&B themed one that we had. You know what I'm saying?
Imagine.
Tragic, right? So I'm listening to the album like, I can't let my boy down. I can't let SZA down. I'm hoping the album is gonna inspire me to put together an immaculate, incredible set, right? And so I thought it was good. But I think in the past, and even in like the earlier TDE releases of SZA, I think it was formulated in my brain that SZA was a little bit more experimental. Right, she was the person that could try for something different and make that different hit every time. Right, I'm thinking of tracks like Warm Winds. I'm thinking of tracks like what's the one with Child's Play? No,
Child's Play.
Yeah, the joint with Kendrick.
Babylon.
My God, see, how did I? I'm talking with an R&B library right now. You know what I'm saying? So. A little bit more experimental, a little bit different, and making some of those different concepts hit. Here, Big Fundamentals is a perfect way to describe this album. It's more I'm controlled with these vocals. I know how to write these songs. I know how to go over and float over these instrumentals, just like any of my contemporaries. But it didn't have as much of that experimental element to me, especially production wise and sonically. It felt like her or a Summer Walker could be on a lot of these songs, where in previous projects, I felt like they were a little bit more distinctly SZA, if that makes sense. I don't know how are my remarks coming off to you, man? I don't want to offend the SZA fan base.
No, I mean, I think you're on point with it. I think really she does have an ability to play with sound, especially like the ethereal glitter sound of R&B. Right? You have so many different artists right now in the R&B space that either will you have your Jasmine Sullivan with Hotels, who will just blow you away with her vocal performance and carrying through a singular theme, and then you have Summer Walker, obviously, who's a songstress whose ability to really her dare I even say how she feels is how her voice sounds. She has such a very close proximity between those two things, which is what makes her music so compelling. And then you have someone like this who's is a chameleon. Someone who's really able to play around with all sorts of different sounds. Specifically, man, I can't tell you. When I was listening to her bars and with ODB, I'm thinking, who wrote on this? Until you realize, like, she actually can write. She's nice with the pen.
Forgiveless is crazy, son. Last track
Incredible.
on the album featuring ODB. Yo, that song is... And she even opens the album rapping, even on the first track, through that kind of like distorted type intro. She's showing off that she's got a pen, that she is versatile like that. When that track came in, I'm appreciating the vibes of this album. I like where it's taking me. And then it was mostly vibes. I liked Low. It was different. You know what I mean? Definitely. I threw that in the mix on the listening session too. Actually, I missed some of the more Metro Boomin type stuff I was playing because that slaps. But it wasn't until like we got deep in the album before I was finding joints that like I could rinse. Snooze, Notice Me. I think we down to track like 8, 9, 10. But that re-woke me up in the album. That run right there, I was like, this is the standouts for me. So and then for her to be able to pull it back and close it out with Forgiveless and what was the other one that I really liked on that one? Good Days is dope. Like this project was, and I know another reason I know good R&B is she was very angsty on this project. She was not in a good space with her lover for a lot of these songs, right? And when I'm not necessarily feeling that in my life, but I still feel the music, I know it's very good R&B for sure.
You saying you're smoking on your X-Pac as well?
No, I'm saying the opposite, right? I have no ill will toward any exes. May they all rest in peace. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yo,
big piece. But she had a lot of smoke for her exes. Even for her, like in the context of the song, her current situations. And while I'm not connecting with that from a lifestyle perspective, I'm still enjoying the music. There's nothing like when a hurt R&B album comes out when you hurt. But if if a hurt R&B album comes out and you're not hurt and you still like it, that's good music.
Yeah, for sure. This is gonna slap for the hurted. But there's still a lot to it, even if you don't like, even if you're not hurt. Love Language is a great song that's on there as well. That's absolutely, so beautifully written. Open Arms is also another one that speaks towards that. So there is a lot more than just the hurt side of it. It's just such a balanced piece of work. We waited 5 years for this, and it kind of feels like the Isaiah Rashad album, where we waited a long time, and the delivery kind of felt like it was worth it. And it sounds like, and it seems like we all feel that this 5-year wait for this album was worth it too, man. Standouts for me are SOS, Low, Love Language, Used with Don Toliver is great. Notice Me, F2F, Far, Open Arms. It's such a good song. It's just such a good album, man. I expect myself to keep finding new things that I love about it as time comes too.
Yeah. Snooze, Notice Me, Forgiveless are my top 3 tracks from this album for sure. Was F2F that SZA Levine joint Was that like punk rock joint? Like,
No, it might be actually that might be the one. I wasn't a big fan of that. I wasn't a big fan of that. I'll take that back.
I don't know if that song is for me, but I actually appreciated it. I know a lot of SZA fans that had that phase of music in their life, and so for her to kind of identify with them, showing off that phase of her life, and I bet that song hits at shows for sure. Even if it's not
Yeah.
for you, seeing the people who it's for go off, like that was cool. That was a cool moment. SZA's still showing that she can make music for a ranged audience. You know, some of the younger folks, some of the older folks. Like, there's a lot to take from this album. Always good to have some good R&B. I don't know if I'm as hyped on it as you are. There's some R&B projects that, you know, I've been more impressed with. But then again, SZA does have a high bar. I think I'm at a 3.5 for this one. I know you can go up it.
I think for 4.5 for me, man. And you know, SZA's albums have a deep ability to be able to keep evolving over time. They're dynamic, they grow really, really well. And I can tell that this is going to be one of those ones where I keep going into it in a different scenario. I'm going to listen to something new and be like, oh, I forgot about this joint. I forgot about this joint. 23 songs. Prepare for her to probably not drop music for a long time now. So hold on to these 23, save them. And when the next one does come, we'll do another review because we know.
Oh, yeah, for sure. We know. It's a lot of podcasts. It's a lot of content. It's a lot of music to listen to. It's a lot of things to do. The holiday season is here. Get your holiday shopping done. You know what I'm saying? Basically, what I'm saying is that you could be anywhere in the world doing anything, and y'all are tuned in with us. We appreciate that, man. It's love. This is a celebration of celebrating. This is a celebration of life. This is a celebration of how good it feels to be Black. Don't it feel good, way?
So much so, my T-shirt is.
You see, consistent. Shout out to our producer Hassan, man. You know, holding us down. We making that transition back to doing this thing from Chicago and South Africa. You know what I'm saying? And the UK all at the same time. So while we working on out, appreciate y'all for rocking with us. Eat something delicious. Hug somebody you love. Like that. Peace. Water.
Yeah, I get that, but is we live though? Is we like all